Wednesday, April 8th.
It is the 8th.
Coming to you live from Recovery Cafe Reclaiming Lives in downtown Medford. Is anyone out there?
Oh, they'll be showing up.
There's one, there's
you
two.
See someone? Oh, okay. My eyes aren't that good. I know you're expecting to see Brandon, but you get me today.
Yay!
He turned over his chair. He doesn't give the mic over very often. Hello, faithful listeners and viewers. Just letting a few more people come online before we get started. How many we got on there now, Alan?
5.
5. What do you think, Brandon? Should we go for it?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, hey everyone. Welcome to the live Facebook for Recovery Cafe Medford. We are excited to have special guest Allan Rucker here today, which if you live in our community, I am sure that you know him or have heard of him. He's a legend. For those of you who don't know us well, if there's anyone out there, I'm Stephanie Mendenhall, Executive Director of Reclaiming Lives. So I have the privilege of sitting 6 feet away from Allan today in this COVID situation and get to ask him a few questions about his story. And I have just found him to be a person of inspiration, and I chose him as leadership in our organization 4 years ago, and I just have a lot of respect for the life that he leads and for what he does for our community. So Allan, thank you for being here.
Thank you for asking.
So
Happy to
back
be
in 2015, Allan and I worked together at Jackson County Health and Human Services, and we sat across the hall from each other. So that was interesting in itself, in that we would go back and forth during breaks and things and just have, you know, chats about who needed what and how we were working on things, and he really brought a lot to my career and my life at that time. When I was laid off at the county, people would come in and ask if I was going to start something, which I thought was interesting in itself, because I didn't really plan to start something. I planned to work at the county. But, you know, people would come and write things on my whiteboard that they thought our community needed, and Allan was always a part of that piece where, you know, we were just going back and forth on what is the recovery community, which I was very passionate about at that time, and how we could, you know, help people with what they really needed to be, who they were intended to be. And he asked me one day, he knew that Tony and I were into coffee, and we had been to some coffee festivals and we're looking at opening a coffee business maybe. And he said, hey, have you ever heard of Recovery Cafe? And I was like, no, what is it? And he said, I don't really know, but I found it online. You should Google it. And he really does get the credit for me even knowing or being affiliated with Recovery Cafe, which is a nationwide organization for those of you who don't know. So we Googled and we went to Seattle and we checked it out, and he became part of my board. And I'll never forget, I came in and I asked him, I said, Allan, I'd really like you to be on my board of directors for Reclaiming Lives. And he said, no. Immediately. He just said no. And I said what I usually say. I said, I really don't like it when people say no to me. Are you sure? Like, let's talk about it. Yeah, and he said, boards are not for me, they're for people who wear suits and are more important.
Ties. Suits
and ties. And that answer was not going to fly with me. I'm like, can you advocate for people who struggle with addiction? Can you sit at a table with other people and give a perspective that they don't have? That's what I'm looking for. And he's like, he had a hard time then. So we welcomed Allan onto our board of directors, and he has been with us from the beginning, and, you know, became a circle leader when we opened in June. And just when I think of Recovery Cafe and what we've accomplished, Allan is always, always part of that story, and I will have with me for my whole life. So thank you for what you've given to me personally and for our organization. So Allan, how are you doing in this COVID crisis?
Cabin fever.
Yeah.
Cabin fever. but you know, my wife presented me with this big list of stuff at my house to do.
Yep.
She said hi on there, by the way.
Not true. I wrote it up myself, and slowly but surely I will get these things done when I'm in my off time. And you know, the COVID-19 thing doesn't really worry me. I'm not. I had some health issues over the last year or two, and so I'm in that high risk group. But it doesn't worry me, and I look at it as a time, you know, to be at home, to recharge, and get some things done, and spend some time with my family. And I'm good with that. So.
That's one of the things I love about you is you don't overthink anything. Like Allan is solid. Like he lives his life. He gives back to others, and he just takes it as it comes, and I just appreciate that so much. Wow. Awesome.
All my overthinkings up here just don't
Okay,
come
well,
out very often.
You don't speak. So, Allan is someone that I have noticed has a really unique recovery story, and I engage with a lot of people, and I live recovery, even though I'm not someone who struggles with addiction. Like, it is something I just am compelled to know more about and understand, and I just have known him to be somebody who has this amazing recovery story, but it's not like everyone else's. And so I asked him today to talk a little bit about those, you know, pieces around his full journey of recovery that maybe people don't know about, or that could shed a light on that. One of the things that we embrace at Recovery Cafe is all pathways to recovery. And so, as you know, if you've been following us, we've had a lot of interviews with people who have affiliations with NA and AA, and they have their faith, and they have Oxford, which has done amazing things for all those people, and Allan actually has a lot of those things as well. But I just am excited for him to share his recovery story and what has changed his thinking maybe in his long-term sobriety. So Allan, share with us.
Me?
Yep.
Oh.
You're in the hot seat.
Okay, so you know, I go to a 12-step meeting. I say I'm an addict named Allan, and that started for me was about drug and alcohol use. I used actively for 24 years. I was a garbage can, you know, garbage disposal type of drug addict. I didn't care what it was. I used it. I guinea pigged. If we had pills in the house, we didn't know what they were. I'll get Allan to do them. He'll do them. You know, that's how I was. I ran hard. I never did not run hard in my addiction. But let me back up just a little bit of backstory. You know, culturally, I'm half Portuguese and half, like, I don't know, German and Irish or something. And there was a long line of alcoholics in my dad's side of the family. I don't know a person on my mom's side of the family, the Portuguese side, that doesn't drink probably, but they didn't always, not everybody had issues with it. But I was predisposed at an early age to alcohol and some of the drugs as well, marijuana and stuff. But when I was little, my mom tells a story about how I drew on the wall with crayons and tried to sign my name at the bottom. And she laughs at the story and about how I just didn't want my brothers or my sister to get credit for drawing on the wall. Well, I think that's true, but what it was, I believe deep in my heart, I believe what it was is I was looking for acceptance. I wanted them to know that I existed, that I did this, you know, and I got older in school, and everything I did was about seeking acceptance. You know, I had a really, in my eyes, traumatic thing happened to me when I was in grade school. I was friends with everybody in the whole grade. You know, I was popular, and I moved away for a year, and I came back for junior high, And all these people that were my friends no longer gave me the time of day. I wasn't in the popular crowd anymore. And so, seeking acceptance, I turned to the people who accepted me for who I was, which were the drug addicts, the pot smokers, the cigarette smokers. They liked me for who I was. So again, looking for acceptance, right? And over the years through high school and the years after high school, I became that garbage can drug addict because of acceptance. These guys were, you know, that I hung with were like, thought I was cool because I would do anything. I was the first person to do a drug. I was the first person to jump off a bridge into the river, and I was the first person to throw a shopping cart at a cop car on Main Street here in Medford. True story.
That's pretty neat.
You know, true story.
Okay.
And acceptance. Everything was about acceptance for me. And so as my addiction progressed, I started finding that my acceptance from others was starting to slack off, and my addiction was getting worse, and I was having problems. I have a DHS case was part of my story, and I was struggling, and I was freshly divorced, and I had a young son that I was help raising, but my spiritual part of me was just shooting downhill fast. I was sinking into this abyss of sorts that I just couldn't figure out a way out of it. And then I found recovery, and my recovery journey started in Narcotics Anonymous, and I walked into my first meeting and I didn't know anybody in the room, and I felt like this big, just a tiny little guy. And I actually feel I got tricked into recovery. I love this story, so I was in treatment, and my counselor, I had been talking about how I had quit doing methamphetamine on my own 7 years previous to that, but I was still doing other drugs and alcohol, of course. And she kind of said, well, you should go to an NA meeting and let them know that. So I went to this NA meeting, and I didn't know any differently, so I stood up and I got a 7-year coin for being clean off of meth, and everybody was like, ooh, and clapping, and I felt accepted. And I was like, oh, right on, I could do this in anything. Like, these people love me here, And so I went back to my group that following week, and I showed my counselor the coin, and I said, look, I did this. And she said, but Allan, you're not clean. You just told me you drank last week and you popped some pills, and you're not clean. And I said, but I haven't done meth in 7 years. And she's like, but you're not clean. So this week, you get to take the coin back and give it back. And I'm like, oh. And so I went back to this meeting, this Friday night meeting, and I went from being this tall to this tall. And I waited till everybody had done the key tags and things, and I stood up and I gave this coin back and told him I needed a 24-hour key tag instead. And the cool thing about these meetings too is the first time when I got the 7-year coin the week before, I was kind of, like flabbergasted. I didn't know what was going on, and I saw this guy wearing a medicine bag in a meeting like this. And my bag I wear everywhere, and I went and sat down by him, and he looked at me and he said, cool, man. And then that following week I went and I gave that coin back, and I'm like tiny and I'm upset and I'm hectic, and I look around and there's that same medicine bag. So I went and sat back down by him again, and he looked at me and he's all, cool, man.
I love that story.
Ray.
That's awesome.
That man has passed away since then, but I love him dearly. But the cool thing that happened is that this gal who came bouncing across the room like a deer, right at me, like freaked me out, like, oh shit. And she told me that I touched her heart, and then she handed me a little runt candy that was a little pink heart, which I still have today.
Wow.
Instead, I touched her heart. And her, 13 years later, and I still get upset. 15 years later, and I still get upset about this, in a good way. Her husband was with her, and I met them, and then this other guy, another guy in NA around the valley here, came up to me and said, I almost made him cry. And I'm like, what? You touched my heart, man. You almost made me cry. And I'm like, I don't know you, whim. But I became really good friends with all three of those people, and still friends with them today. But what that showed me was, again, acceptance. What I thought was a terrible thing that I did was not. They accepted me for the drug addict that I was, and I've been here ever since. I don't know how much of my...
That's so much like the heart of what we do too, and I know because you were a part of it, but it's like, that love and acceptance and the belonging, like our theme here at Recovery Cafe Medford is belong, grow, and inspire. And we just find that when people come through the door and you know their name and you know something about them and you build them up and encourage them, that they want to come back. Like, that's what we're looking for, is a place where you do feel accepted for who you are, and maybe you don't get that anywhere else in your life. And so, like, your story is so compelling. I've never heard him tell that story, but it's like so a part of our whole organization and what we do. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, and it's true. They accepted me no matter what, and I wanted to come back. I couldn't wait to come back to that meeting next week. And I went to that meeting. I still go to that meeting because it still exists. Now, not right now, I'm not going to it, but I still go to it.
Feel like that relationship that you build with people based on this acceptance and love then becomes accountability, whether you want that or not. Like, because you allow someone into your life and they come into your life, it's like you then don't want to disappoint them, or, it's like there's some kind of like tension that relationship then brings that helps you kind of keep on that road that you're on, I think.
Yep, and I've since then met many more people in both fellowships, or the biggest two fellowships, NA and AA, but they hold me accountable. Those same three people still hold me accountable today.
And they care about you. Like, that accountability isn't in some kind of like, I'm better than you or I have the answer for you. It's about a love that you have for each other and you want to see them do well. Yeah. So what else in your recovery has kind of led you to where you are? I know you have, 10, 12 years now? I can't remember.
My clean date is April 4th, 2007. So last Saturday I just celebrated 13 years.
Wow, congratulations.
That was, thank you.
13.
13. It was kind of crazy. My self-centeredness kicked in, and I was like, I can't go to a meeting and celebrate this year. What am I going to do? I go to a meeting and celebrate for a week every year. Because I want, addicts to know it's possible to get 13 years or 13 months or, 30 years or however, I want addicts to know it's possible. If a gutter addict like me can do it, is what I like to say sometimes, that anybody can, because I had no desire to get clean when I did it, But yeah, so it was kind of weird, but I went on a Zoom meeting and celebrated it. And with the NA History Day, there was 5 speakers, all with 38 years or more clean time. The first speaker had 60 years clean. 60 years, like I wasn't even a sparkle yet, and he was already getting clean, you know. I mean, 60 years, and
paving the way for us.
What's that?
Paving the way for us.
Yes, yeah, he was, and you know, and it was all about the history of NA, which was really cool, you know, and I got to, some of it I already knew, and I got to learn a lot more that I already didn't know, and I was in a room with, I think, 70 other addicts in this room, in just the room I was in, but there were thousands of these rooms active for this history. There were thousands of addicts, I don't know how many rooms, but thousands of addicts in rooms like I was. One of the cool parts to it was there was an addict who used to be in our fellowship here that moved away out of town, and we ended up somehow in the same room. And so we were
Small
like
world.
waving at each other and things like that. Sort of waving at each other, I mean, as best as we could over a Zoom room, but you know, it was really cool to know he was in there with me. And anyways, so that's how I celebrated my clean day.
Congratulations.
And I ate cheeseburgers.
Oh.
Oh, that's not on your diet.
But I have to give a little shout out to my wife, who went out of her way to get me a. I'm good, man. I'm good.
Keep crying around here, bro.
I'm not that kind of
I'm
crier.
not that kind of guy.
Save it for the
Look at all the hearts. See, people are loving it.
I get emotional because I'm so used to keeping it in that, you know, I watch, you know, action movies and I cry when people get blown up. No, I'm playing.
He's playing. He's kidding.
So my wife knew that she knows how important my clean date is to me. So she pulled some magic out of her hat and got a coin for me, and to give to me that morning. I woke up to a coin and a card, and that was special. And then she got another coin sent to me from World as well. So I got the 2 coins, but you know, kudos to her for recognizing my clean date like that, and she's the smart one of the 2 of us, you know. So.
I do have to say that in all the years that I've known Allan, like, his wife and his relationship is really amazing. Like, I know that he attributes a lot of his healthiness and his sobriety, maybe even, to his relationship with his wife. And, you know, we don't always hear that in our circles. And so I just really commend you on not only addressing your addiction, but being able to be in a healthy, stable marriage and be, you know, the husband and father that you are today. Like, it's really, really inspiring. He loves Julie. I know this for a fact. Yeah.
Well, you know, I think I had a couple years clean, and I had, and I won't go into what it was, but I had pulled some bad stuff in my recovery, you know, relationship wise, and but I recognized it, and it didn't work for me anyways. But I recognized it for what it was, and I went to my sponsor, and I talked with him about it, and we decided to do step work on relationships. And so I did this, and I did a lot of my own self work on relationships, and I realized that I had never really ever had a healthy relationship in my life, with possibly the exception being the one I had with my child, and even then that wasn't completely healthy either. And so I did the work. I worked on my side of being in a relationship, and I don't know that I'm perfect by any means in it, but what I do know is that I strive to treat everybody in this world equally and with love and compassion, and I recognize that everybody has their own battles going on, and just like I do, and together we can get through anything.
Yeah.
That's how I look at it. And so I went and, I was a single dad raising my son on my own, trying to work at a minimum wage job and still make it to, recovery, a huge part of my life, going to meetings and doing step work. And then I married a woman with kids, and now I have a small country of children and
grandchildren.
And grandchildren and
small country.
But I love all those kids, and I love my wife, and what I have is the ability to just be in a father, and which is one of the things all I ever wanted to be was a father when I was growing up, and so I get to be that, and my son grew up in a lot of chaos with me and his mother's addictions and divorce and all this other stuff and custody battles, but he pulled through out of this, to the other side, and I think he's an addict. I do believe he's an addict, but he's not an addict like I was. He's addicted to, computers and video games and some kind of music. I don't even know what it is. But he's healthy and he's working and he's doing well, and that's the best I could ask for a father. When I married my wife and I got all these stepkids, and I love them all differently because they're all different kids, and it's been a struggle. Being a step parent is not easy by any means, and but I love each of those kids in their own sort of way, and in my own sort of way with them, and it's been a blessing as well. The oldest boy, this is one of the heartbreaking parts of my story. The oldest boy last November, because of his IV drug use, had to have his he had a shot site that went septic, and he had to go in the hospital, and he had to get his arm amputated from the shoulder down, and that was heartbreaking, and he still went back out to the street, and that's the power of drug addiction. I don't, I know he's alive. I saw him walk by the other day, but I don't know. I would have thought getting my arm amputated would have been enough for me, but I don't know if it would have been. I don't know. I never in that position, but it's heartbreaking, and I want him to be okay. Him and his girlfriend are out there, and they had a child, and that's my grandbaby, my first grandbaby, and she lives with me and my wife, and she's lived with us since she was 1 year old, and she's almost 5, and that's one of the most heartbreaking and heartwarming things going on in my life at the same time. I want her to be with her parents. I want them to be okay. I want them to be okay. I want her to be okay and be with them. That's enough. But at the same time, I've grown so accustomed to having her live with me that I'll fight you for him. And, the coolest part about the whole deal is that she gets to live with me and my wife, and she's never seen us loaded, and we're breaking that chain of addiction with her. She might hear stories as she's growing up, or, because me and my wife got stories, but she doesn't ever have to see us loaded, and that's important. That's what we all of us that have children that are in recovery, we need to strive for that. We need to break those chains of addiction, and we can. I'm a firm believer we can. We our kids don't ever have to see us loaded again.
Oh man, that's one of our biggest missions. Like when Tony and I started this journey, we reached out to these young people who were struggling and on the street and didn't have kids yet in their 20s, and we don't feel like we chose them intentionally. They chose us in a way, but it was like our hope is that they have a healthy life and are able to have a family that doesn't experience addiction and how do we make that generational? So many people who struggle with addiction do, because it's a generational problem that's been embedded in their family forever. And so, you know, anybody's story that includes, you know, I am breaking this for the next generation, and that's my commitment, like that just warms my heart. Like that's what we want to see too, like healthy families in a community who gives back and is part of the solution. Like how do we create the next generation being healthier than the one before it? So thank you for sharing your story today. Like there's so much more to it, and I know we're gonna have him back, but we try to keep these to like 30 minutes.
Oh
so.
man, I didn't even get
you didn't even start your
Don't worry, we're gonna have him back for the podcast.
You know, Brandon and I are working on a podcast concept, and so it will be longer and probably more subject topic based. But Allan, like you said, so many things that I just appreciated, and these things always go the way they go, you know, for a reason. And I told Brandon yesterday when we were talking about this that what I know about Allan is that relationships with his family are very important to him, and I'm so like grateful for you sharing that story with us. Like I just want to hug him so bad. Like this whole thing is just so weird.
Social distancing hug. So let me say though, you know, okay, so I don't feel that I'm any different than any other drug addict out there. I have different parts to my story. I'm old, so there are drugs that I did that aren't even probably in existence anymore. There's drugs that the younger kids today are doing that I have not a clue what they even were. You know, but I don't feel that we're any different. An addict is an addict is an addict. I have DHS involvement. I have criminal involvement. I've been incarcerated. You know, I'm not any different than anybody else. What makes me different from anybody in recovery today is only the simple fact that is what we do in recovery today. It's all about changing behaviors. And so I changed my behaviors so I can be a productive member of society again. So I could be a productive member in my household. My wife and I discuss things equally and make decisions together on what we're going to do. You know, I'm valued at my job. My granddaughter, like, oh my God, I can't, like she looks at me with stars in her eyes, you know, and things, because she just loves Grandma and I, and you know, it's not about where I came from. It is about where I came from, but it's about what I do today. I make good choices. You know, and everybody that's out there that's using and that's in recovery, it has that same ability. You just need to change behaviors and make good choices. Yeah. It's not easy getting clean, but it's really easy staying clean. It really is. You just got to make good choices. That's all. Yeah. And
thank you for being such a good example.
You know,
like it just warms my soul to hear you say everything you've said today. I just. You know, so much of recovery is about the mental and the change of behavior. Like I told Brandon the other day, I say this all the time, reference because we talk so much, but like I just want, you know, a running list of what's said in these lives to refer back to. You know, nothing changes if nothing changes. Like we heard the other day from Kelly.
Favorite statement.
Such a great statement, and you know what you're talking about, like the behavior piece. So thank you so much for
Believe
coming
you
on.
can.
You can. That's right. Believe you can.
Because together we can.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. We send out love from a distance. Like, if you're interested in Recovery Cafe, please give us a call. We're taking new members and getting them plugged into Zoom circles. If you're struggling today and you need somebody to be a part of your life, like we want to be a part of it. So give us a call, 541-292-1618, or go to reclaiming-lives.org. All right, have a blessed day, everyone. Goodbye.
Love y'all.